Uh, Ben was born in New York City, and he lived there through his childhood, and we met at NYU, New York University. After that, he was teaching in a suburb of New York, Peekskill, New York. He was a phys ed teacher, and he had registered at the NYU employment agency, and they found him a job in Cincinnati, which was like going out west someplace. But we did take the job because the pay was good for those days. Ben grew up in the Bronx, in a kind of middle class or lower middle class neighborhood. He has had one sister and one brother. His sister is still living. His brother is not. It was a Jewish family. They were not terribly religious, but kind of observant. He was majoring in teaching physical education, and he became chairman of the student body. He was active in school politics, and he enjoyed that very much.
And when he graduated, he got a job teaching for a couple of years?
Yes, he taught in Peekskill. Ben, after his college graduation, Ben and I worked at an orphanage, and from there we went on to Peekskill, New York, where he taught physical education. It was in art education. So when we were at the orphanage, he was assistant to the director, and I taught arts and crafts after the kids went to school. It was an extracurricular activity. We ended up in Cincinnati when Ben received a call about an opening for a job in Cincinnati, and we were ready for a change, so we accepted the job, or he accepted the job, I should say, and he worked as a personnel director, making $3,000 a year, which was big money in those days, for us anyway. Ben's first job as personnel director was in North Avondale, and we were living in Avondale at that time. The company was Jewish Vocational Service, and he was hired to help with job placements. People would come in and request a secretary to work at a particular site, and he would find somebody who was registered with them who would accept that job. And then when somebody came along and said, we need a personal director at King Record Company, he said, okay, I've got the job. When Ben was at the employment agency, he was requested to find a personnel director for King Records, and the job sounded appealing to him, and he requested that he himself take that job, and he was accepted, and that was the beginning of his career with King Records.
Now, Ben started this policy of integrating the staff, or a hiring policy based on ability. Do you remember him talking about that, about wanting to start that policy at King Records? Do you remember anything talking about that, or his attitude about that?
Well, we discussed it. At that time, it was more difficult for African Americans to get an equal job footing with white people, and I guess it still is, but we felt strongly that it was important for everybody to have the same opportunity. Well, I think it was in his upbringing. His parents had sent him to a summer camp, And it was an integrated camp, and he felt this is the way life should be. We're all together in this. When Ben was in real estate, at that time the policy was that you had to belong to the real estate board, and if you were black, they didn't want you in it. And Ben and one of his salespeople thought that was so unfair that they dug up this plan. She said, the real estate lady, who was white, told the real estate board, "You're discriminating against me. I'm white and I have to belong to the real estate board. My coworker, Eileen, who is African American, doesn't have to belong to the real estate board, so that's discrimination." And in that way, they were able to have the real estate board accept black people. I remember he said that there was going to be 2 picnics, and he asked, I guess he asked Sid Nathan, why are there 2? And he was told that one was for the black workers and one was for the white. And he said, "Oh no, we don't do that. We're going to have one picnic for everybody." And that worked out very well, in spite of the fact that people were uneasy. They thought there might be a little bit of unpleasantness, but there wasn't. It worked out very well. I think he always felt that he had a mission, and it was not enough to just have a job. You had to do something to help mankind, womankind.
And that was brought up by his upbringing, right? So he's sort of a...
I think so, or his own philosophy. I think he took pride in the fact that he was a little bit ahead of everybody else in the world.